Northern Europe, Baroque. This the influence of the Council of the Trent, influence of the Counter Reformation, uh, also spread to the north in cities, to the Flemish area in cities like Antwerp and Amsterdam and Delft. And that's so today we want to use three artists who are from these cities, this the center of these mercantile cities in the north, to probe into how the Baroque style unfold in the north, in the Netherlandish area. Rubens, Rembrandt, and Vermeer. A little bit of the summary of how the Northern European, is different from the Italy, the Florence and Rome. It's a little bit similar to when we talked about Renaissance, how from Italy it traveled north to the Netherlandish area. The presence of the open art market and, or by extension, the general burgeoning market in the north, in the Northern Europe, in the maritime trade route that amasses, that helped this area to amass, and the people in this area amass a lot of their economic power, a lot of money in this area, and art was one way to present their identity, to connect them with the politics, uh, uh, and namely with the church, with the religious background, the religious institutions, things like that. And also that's why in the Baroque North Europe, we see a lot of the secular patronage and also the secular, more of the secular art. So one thing that we want to explore today is how Baroque, when it was in Italy, it was very grandiose. It was for a lot of the public and religious institutions. But here, it could become a bit secular. It could become some kind of private patronage for private viewership. So some difference in the audience right there, right? For they created for uh, different group of intended audience. So secular patronage, absence of monarch and patrons, but you have the guild organizations, the richer private clients, different clients, and the presence of the open art market, strong economic power, and also in Holland, we see the specialization of different mediums and, and, and different genres, different category of art as well. For example, we have the portraiture, the printmaking was prevalent at the time in the 17th century, the Baroque period, the Golden Baroque period, the typographical landscaping, the map making, right? That take note of that term, of that word, the map making, the topographical landscaping, painting is might not just be for the enjoyment, for the decoration, but the topographical way of mapping out the city, mapping out the route of your surrounding. That kind of, it's more kind of geographical, scientific endeavor, right? Still life painting, genre painting, sense of the scenes from your daily life, everyday mundane life, doing things that's insignificant, but it was included in the painting. That's something what we don't see so much in the Italy. So I have the slides for how the difference, how the Baroque reached the north, right, from Italy by of course by people, right, by artists who came to the Italy and study in Italy and later uh, travel back home. And one of the very prototypical example would be Rubens, who later, when he came back to Antwerp, to Netherlands, he became uh, especially successful. So Peter Paul Rubens, the first anchor artist for today, uh, he worked in Antwerp. He went back to Antwerp after an a Italian sojourn, his trip to Italy for almost Rome, Florence as well, uh, for almost a decade. So that's where he learned some of the towering figures that we encounter that we met uh, from earlier lectures. Say, for example, Caravaggio, right? He learned from the tenebrism, the use of light, and brought those and incorporate all those things into his own creation of paintings, of arts. And that's one way, right? And Rubens is one example of many artists who brought the Baroque art to back to the from Italy back to the north. And one thing I want to note to you before I get to the elevation of the cross, this massive altarpiece is is well, it's actually Rubens is one of the many artists, successful artists who received a lot of commissions from the churches in religious institutions in the north, in Holland, in Flemish. And the reason why might be a little bit coincidental. I don't know if you still remember the Counter-Reformation, and before that was it was the Reformation, right? Martin Luther put all the all this the edict listing um, listing the crime of the church on the bronze door on the church, and then that kick-started the Reformation, and then we have the uh, iconoclasm, which is to clash the icons, iconoclasm, to the that this Christians coming the flocking into uh, churches and take down all the artworks because they say that's too luxurious, that we only focus on studying the Bible. There's no need for this uh, uh, visual representation of God. So they take down all the artworks. That's the same happened in the North. Iconoclasm also happened in the North. And when they get to the 17th century, which it's people usually call it the golden age of Northern Europe, the golden age of art in Northern Europe, uh, the iconoclasm left all the churches pretty a void, very empty. And when that was passed, the church needs to, right? When the Counter-Reformation is in place, the church needs a lot of artworks to decorate, to put them back onto their walls, to engage the viewers, to engage the Christians, the worshipers, the congregations, with the artworks, with the visual trope that decorates artwork, just like how it's just like this, what I'm showing on the ceiling, right? The busyness of visual elements to convert you, to engage you, to dramatize the scene, right? All this is coming back. And that left a lot of opportunity to the artists at the time that they need to all this they have all these commissions to they're busy decorating the churches again. And this is and the elevation of the cross is one of the artworks that's decorating one of the churches. And let me jump, and this is what the elevation of the cross, that Jesus being elevated to the cross, be nailed to the cross. And he also created his workshop, Rubens's workshop, also Peter Paul Rubens. He also created the, of course, the descent from the cross, right? Since we have the elevation of the cross, uh, we need to have the other twin to go along with it. It's supposed to be a triptych and a massive, huge triptych put at the altarpiece or at the altar of this church. And it was originally put at the altar, set at the altarpiece in this uh, Saint Waberger church in Antwerp. But the church later in the 17th, in the 18th century, that church, because of war, it was destroyed. That church was destroyed, and this painting was transported, was stored away, and later be transported to the where we see it today in Antwerp, at a different church, Cathedral of Our Lady. And during that transportation, I don't know if you noticed the top part of it was lost because it's supposed to be even bigger. So maybe we start with this triptych. Maybe we start with why this is so big. It's because this is just part of where it says there's a top gear, another painting on top of it that Rubens created for this project. A little bit of a context. Where's this church? Waberger, the church, St. Waberger church. Well, it's made for, this is by the docks, this is by the sea in Antwerp. And so you can imagine to the stevedores, to the people who worked at the docks and spend their days hoisting heavy cargo is this elemental power right there. Lifting, they're hoisting the heavy cargo, they're pulling the rope, the thick rope, doing all the heavy lifting, and then they come to this church, they gather at this church, they're seeing, oh, they have some peers, right? They have some religious counterparts who's doing their part of the heavy lifting. In this case, is lifting Jesus to the cross. That's a connection that Rubens was intentionally, deliberately building for the intended audience, right? The intended audience was supposed to be people, part majority of them, right, who work at the port, heavy lifting. And you see a little bit of the sea in the background, right? A little bit of the twilight and here, and then turns into more kind of cave and the corner of the cave. That's a background. And Rubens received this commission and started to create it in his workshop shortly after he came back from the decade-long trip to Italy. And that's why we talk about this painting, because he's still have all these things, all the scenes, all the things that he learned, he acquired in Italy, fresh in his mind, and now he came to this commission of this painting. Okay, going deeper in this painting, some kind of visual analysis of it. How about foreground, midground, background, right? Isn't it how a painting usually is structured? Well, in the foreground we have someone, of course, someone's trying to kind of pull and holding and pull up the cross, right, to kind of elevate this cross. And we have two men in the front, one using rope and pulling the big pole, and their direction is actually pulling and into the viewer space. And remember that one of the trick that we saw in Caravaggio, things almost falling over into the spectator's space, breaking the picture plane. And we have here Rubens with the figures in the foreground about to fall into your space, you as the viewer. Okay, the midground. And how you see this is a triptych, very religious, very typical Christian kind of uh, medium kind of painting category for the especially for the altar for to be set at the altarpiece. And in the midground, we see how the artist is intelligently we kind of connect all three panels, right? We have two side panels, all three panels together because it's uniting them with they're standing on the same landscape, same standing point. You see the soldiers on the right panel are standing on the ground. That's uh, on the same level of Mary and these soldiers right here and the people right. So there's one mid ground that they shared, and then they share one background with the light, the background. So it's the background and the midground that's unifying the entire scene together, even though through the with the framing they're separated. And also in the midground, in the foreground, connecting the mid of connecting the excuse me, connecting the foreground, middle ground, and the background is this one diagonal line of Jesus on the cross. You see, this was a straight diagonal line. Diagonal, right? That's a term what we use, the way we talked about to to transfer that kind of drama, right? In some of the scenes we've seen in, for example, Caravaggio in Italy as well. So diagonal line here, well, we see Rubens has a very emphatic application of that diagonal line to unify the different the three different grounds, foreground, midground, and background, but also creating that kind of dramatic scene. People pulling, pushing, and lifting diagonal, breaking the picture plane and elevate and direct your gaze upward. And imagine, please imagine when they still have that top part, the top panel, kind of like a crown, right? Do you remember? It's kind of like a crown frame, like a crown on top that covers almost uh, more than half of the height of the church. So how monumental it gets for the worshipers, and usually this is where the liturgical activity was happening, right? For the congregation, they have this ceremony, the ritual happening in the front, and when the people down here, they're already looking up through the steps. Remember the seafarers, the stevedores, they already looking up and they have this diagonal Jesus, this cross leading their gaze up, and they still have this painting now lost. So we don't even have a picture of what it really what the content of the picture is. So everything is leading your gaze, right? The stairs, the visual composition, and then the monumental size of the painting, and then one painting on top of another, leading your gaze up, 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 all the way looking up, right? To be in awe of that ritualistic religious power. And all of these are all very much intended for Rubens, right? Because he had this mission, right? He's the man of the time, right? After this iconoclasm, he had to redecorate the church and bring the awe, bring the magic, bring the visual visual miracle back to the interior space of the church, and that's how Rubens devised elevation of the cross. So now do you feel that elemental power? Or in other words, how uh, what do you think Rubens has learned from Caravaggio? And what are the things that is different from Caravaggio? Well, let me share my point of view about the difference, right? Uh, well, the similarity, of course, the use of light is definitely one of them. But the difference, how about the color? The use of red and blue, that's very standard in 17th, 18th Renaissance Baroque. But the use of color to dramatize, the color as one weapon for Rubens to dramatize the movement. The movements going on within the scene, and of course, the movement that could be going on outside of the picture plane, outside of the scene. And the brushstrokes, where you see the depiction of the body of the uh, kind of emphatic focus on uh, their the flesh, the movement to and use these brushstrokes to create the drama, the expression you see. Because this is supposed to be a divine moment, and Rubens rightly knows that. He needs to create that divine moment to dramatize that kind of divine celestial realm. And that realm is very different from our mundane realm, where the spectator, the viewer, is standing. And similar manipulation in the descent from the cross, right? Jesus being descended, or this Paul going all the way straight down, right? But the direction is different right now. It's going down, and people's facing, looking at Jesus straight down, almost fall. If they all let go of their hands, to Jesus, the body might fall into your feet as a spectator, right? Another thing that's worth noting about Rubens is how he's very personal, is when he's doing paintings is like crazy, is multitasking by some of the documents that shows his multitasking, doing many things while he's painting in a kind of like insane state, right? To create this painting. So he paints pretty fast. And maybe his style requires him to paint fast because you see all the uh this painting, for example, right? And I'll give you the background, the context later. This almost showing the kind of nymphs, the sea change, that this wave going on, right? In at the bottom. And in fact, this is a scene, this is the protagonist, right? That's what's really happening. The the debarkation of Marie de Medici, who's married to France, Henry IV. And you see this, while this is very pretty serious events going on. He's trying to dramatize the surrounding of this, right, with all these nymphs, the divine, the gods, to push and pull the water, create that huge wave, using drama to surround that event, to tell you, to show you, oh, see, this is an important event because this event makes the world like, well, gets the world's attention and makes the world swirling. Who's Mary de Medici? Well, he's the regent queen of France who came over from Italy and married Henri, or Henry, or Henri is French, Henri the Fourth in France, and assumed the throne when Henri the Fourth was assassinated in 1610. or the king was assassinated. So uh, Mary de Medici tried to assume the throne, but he was not from Italy, right? He is from Italy. He's not a kind of born and raised, born and bred French. So he has this legitimacy issue, right? If Mary de Medici has the right to assume the throne after her husband, who assassinated her husband, um, she's in the midst of this political or even also personal crisis. So Mary de Medici was in need to reestablish her legitimacy in France because she needs to ascend to the throne and people listen to her. And one of the device he she set out, was to commission Rubens and create 24 monumental size propagandic kind of painting for her to put in this major hall of the palace as a way to claim to the spectators, to the citizens, to the elite in France that she has this legitimacy to eulogize her accomplishment. So Rubens' painting make political legitimacy look natural, glorious, and almost cosmetically, cosmically approved. For example, this is the debarkation of the ship, of Mary de Medici, and this is the kind of personification of the France, kind of goddess of France, who's here at the shore to welcome her, right? Things is going off. Nymph people blowing the trumpet. This is supposed to be a very exciting moment that she's coming to France. Very propaganda. And then the nymph people celebrating in the sea. And you can just go online and check out the other 23. They're also very propagandic, but also dramatizing the propaganda, right? Because there has to be a way to create that propaganda. So Rubens, with this painting, actually teaches us that Baroque persuasion can work in a palace just as powerful as in a church like this one. And why Rubens matters to the North? Well, he's actually uh, he's literally brought Italian Baroque to the North, right? With his study in Italy and came back to the Antwerp.